Oh, we're back.
Yes.
All right, guys. Very shortly, we will be bringing on Jonboy Meyers. But first,
The sponsors.
yes, we have to talk about those guys because we love that too.
The Short Box Podcast. The Short Box is an award-winning comic and pop culture podcast based in Jacksonville, Florida, created in 2012 and hosted by Barter, Cesar, Ed, Ashley, and Drew. The show is on its sixth season of releasing weekly opinionated discussions centered around pop culture and comics. Industry professionals, actors, musicians, and content creators regularly join the show to chat about projects and the latest fandom news. If you've ever asked yourself what's worth checking out, look no further than the Short Box Podcast.
JJ's Comics and Art, the rep for Doug Mankey, has been supporting Conline from the very, very beginning. Head over to their Instagram, at JJ's Comics and Art, to check out the latest they have to offer, which is a lot, very much.
Scott's Collectibles. Scott's reps some of the top creators in the business and was kind enough to lend a few of their clients to us. Head over to scottscollectibles.co.uk to check out the latest offerings from their creators.
MajorPain.com. They just launched their site and they're adding new comics every day. Like them on Facebook and join their insiders group, or feel free to just give them a call and they can help you find the comics and comic art you're looking for.
Alpha Omega Certification. If you watched the Mike Mayhew one previous to this, you saw them on there. They are an official CGC facilitator for Comic Conline. Check out alphaomegacertification.com for amazing list of signature submissions and opportunities.
OutRightGeekery.com, the official news site of Comic Conline. They've had exclusive behind-the-scenes coverage, and you got to see everything first from them. Head over to their website for the latest comic-related news.
We have the Comic Book Shopping Network. It's a hub where retailers can come together and host live shows every day. It's the brainchild of Jesse James Comics and Jen King with Space Cadets. CBSN is home of some of the best comic deals and people on Facebook.
We have Oasis Comics, your official home for Jay Lee and David Barron exclusive covers. The Power Rangers exclusive color blanks are not available on the website, so head to www.oasiscomics.com. OASAS-comics.com.
Kind of want a Blue Ranger blank now. But I don't see too many blue blanks out there.
Blue is my favorite colors. So, but do you have to get a Blue Ranger on the blue blank?
No.
I think it'd be easier.
Get Leonardo.
There you go. Also, not an official sponsor, but they did do the very first and only exclusive for Comic Conline, coffincomicsshop.com. Head there to pick up the Art Germ cover for Lady Death. It's, I believe, open order are the trade dress and the virgin variant. $20 for the trade dress, $30 for the virgin variant. They are open order until Monday. I believe the other two covers are sold out. They also have prints and the metal card available.
And thank you to CGC for allowing us to go live every day from there with a guest.
All right, guys, it is time to bring Jonboy Meyers up. And here we are. What's going on, buddy?
Wow, you guys got sponsors?
Yeah.
No.
It's fancy this time.
Fancy. Yeah, you guys are like respectable now. It's just like, what? I'm like, what? Like, I got to run some commercials before I introduce you. And I'm just like, what? We got sponsors now? It's like, wow, that's well, that means you guys are kind of moving on up, right? That's
I guess people pay me to talk about them. What? No. It's kind of interesting, having sponsors. It's not something that in anything I've ever done we've ever had, but I guess it does mean that you've made it.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, that's pretty neat. And speaking of podcasts, so like I know you guys do this stuff on YouTube quite a bit and Facebook Live and things like that. Like it would be really cool to have you guys do a podcast where
That's my
it's more where you guys
we do have a podcast.
Okay. Oh, dude, all right. Because then you can talk about hot topics that you can't talk about like here, but you can get a little bit more like, hey, let's talk about how we really feel about what's going on right now, or whatever, as far as comic industry and things like that. Like where it's a little bit more, hey, like more down in the dirt type stuff instead of because like when you're facing people on an audience and a bigger audience, you're always going to watch your P's and Q's. But so it's nice to talk about more interesting things.
You know me. If I said everything I really think, I probably wouldn't have a job.
No, honestly, I think your type of candor people kind of appreciate because it's usually, especially when it's comics related, it's usually a lot about what we're thinking. We just don't say it because we're just like, I don't want to deal with all the blowback or people getting upset or having, it's like, oh well, but you just kind of like, yeah, I'm just gonna float this out there and I'm gonna I'm just gonna say this and leave it here, blah blah blah, and that's it. It's done. It's like, oh yeah. Feels good. It's a nice little release, I think, for me. It's like, oh, I wanted to say that. It's like, oh, thank you, Corey. That's good. Like, yeah. So
what has Jonboy Meyers been up to?
Oh man, I haven't talked to you guys in 2 months, right? I've been
it's been a minute, man.
Yeah, it's been God, I feel like, man, I miss you guys. I feel like you guys are like growing and getting sponsors and moving on up, dressing all fancy, and you got your cool hats and everything. It's too much change for me in 2 months, but I've been doing a lot of retailer.
I sold out, John.
What's that?
I said I sold out.
No, when you sell out, you'll actually have official sponsors on your T-shirt that you have to wear. You know what I mean? Sponsored by Pepsi or whatever. Right? Like he says, this show is sponsored by CGC or something like that, right? But no, I've been working on a lot of retailer exclusive covers, working on Princess Dragon Killer. Just wrapped up some video game stuff I've been working on, and then working on a mystery project as well that I can't really talk about right now. But pretty excited. I've done so many. I think I've done more exclusive covers since COVID started than I have like last year. It was I've probably done like 6 or 7. Man, it's been pretty crazy. So yeah.
How is Princess Dragon Killer coming along?
It's good. It's good. It was kind of going slow there as I was doing some work in video games and then doing some retailer covers. But since I'm almost done with those, now I can get back onto PDK full time and trying to wrap that thing up. So hopefully soon, man. I'm just like, my wife's like, when are you going to share this? I was like, I hope soon. I just got to get it done. So
you're doing a fantastic job in building anticipation. I mean, it's been, I'm what
a year and a half. People are like, this thing doesn't exist. It's like a unicorn. It's like, yeah, whatever. That doesn't.
Like, he's been talking about it since. We met 2018. Yeah, 2018. Yeah, we met 2018, and he's been talking about it. He hadn't started it yet, really. I think he had some stuff in notebooks, but it's the passion project, and these things take time, especially if it's your stuff and you get final say on it.
Well, honestly, it's more about cash flow. I think you guys kind of understand that too, because the thing about being an artist is when you kind of stop to work on your own stuff, this industry kind of passes you by. And if you get opportunities to work on retailer covers to help pay bills, or if you get video game jobs that come in, you want to take those because at some point you want to be able to transition to where when you're sent out your pitch and your pitch is picked up, you can start putting your book out, start getting paid on that. And you can tell all these other guys like, hey, I'm sorry, I'm unavailable now. Just creating that cash flow and that buffer, because for me, I don't really have anybody paying for anything. I mean, it's all out of pocket. I'm paying freelancers out of pocket. I'm not like signing this over to like anybody. Like I don't want to share like anything with. It's not selfish, but I don't want like I go to another publisher and like they're like, hey, we will pay you a page rate, but we'll own 20% of it. I don't want to do anything like that. And that's why it's been taking some time. So it's like, okay, I got to pay this guy. Let me work a couple jobs again. That way I have money for him. And then, because the worst thing is to not pay your freelancers or have your freelancers wait. Because if they do their work, they should get paid, Mm-hmm. And I think that's the thing, especially with me being a freelancer as well. I kind of, I definitely relate. I want to make sure like, if people are taking their time out to do stuff for me, that they're not going to wait on getting paid. As soon as the work's done, hey, here's a check. Here you go. Here's a check. Here's a go. So, so that's it's kind of a weird thing because it kind of staggers out your timeline a little bit. So, because it's kind of like waking up and you don't know what day it is. You're like, man, what is this? Is this Saturday? And my wife's like, no, it's Wednesday. And I'm just like, what? So it's just you're always working on stuff all the time. It just time flies right by. And it's been like a couple months now, and it feels like a couple of weeks to me. So it's crazy, very crazy.
So have you taken downtime, though, to catch up on any kind of backlog of music, video games, movies, anything like that?
No, actually, I've been kind of gearing up to do stuff because my Snake Eyes book actually arrives in 5 days, almost a week. So I'm actually getting all that stuff bundled. In my spare time, I'm also getting bags set up. So I can just pre-bag, do down the line, put all this stuff in, go through books, sign them, get them sent out to retailers, to you guys, get everybody taken care of. Because that book's coming out it comes out the 15th, and then I got these guys in, and my buddies Nelson Chu at Big Time Collectibles and Kwang Chang at kwangchang.com hooked me up with some copies of Venom 25. So I've been working on remarks as well. So I don't have any on the site, no remarks, not yet. I want to get them all done so I can put them on the site. So maybe later on, the next one we do, it'll be, hey, look at all this. I want to do something special with those Venom 25s where I do like a remark and then maybe have a subset where I have head sketches or something like that where it's a little bit bigger art on its own thing for fans and things like that. I don't know if there's a demand for that. I mean, I think if Stanley did something like that, he could probably sell them for $1,500 a pop. Now, I'm not going to sell them for that, but I think Stanley could sell them for that.
I guess mostly like with him, it's mostly remarks. Like we've pretty well done away with remarks on the site too, just because he doesn't really care to do them because he likes working on more traditional artist style paper and doing digital stuff as opposed to this slick cover. So it's it's an artist choice as opposed to anything else.
I don't blame him because one wrong move with your hand, you smear the whole thing. You're just like, oh man.
Yeah,
it sucks. It just some of the paper qualities aren't that great. I think the best for sketch covers is whatever Coffin Comics uses is really good stuff, man. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's great paper, and I wish everybody used the same paper. They just don't. It's just like cheap cardstock. It's just like.
When they did the first blank cover that they did, we got some like I don't think I have a remark. No, I have one remark on one of my Lady Deaths, which is a by Ryan Kincaid. He remarked it for me at the same convention I met you at.
Oh, nice. This is supposed to be Florida then, right? Was it Florida?
Yeah, it was MegaCon.
Wow. Yeah.
So that was an eventful show for me. And I was just a fan.
You were having a great time, but you're connecting with everybody. Like, yeah, I think I'm going to be doing this and that. I've got this thing in the works. I'm like, have you been doing this? You're like, no, I just started. I was like, that's cool.
I was literally nobody. I was still not much anybody, but like I had no connections whatsoever at that point. That's where I was making them all, is that show.
But that's the thing about those. Like, I think with you, like, I meet a lot of people who say they want to do that, but they don't really do it. Like, everything you said you're going to do, you do. And it's kind of like, okay, this guy's for real. Like, you say you're going to do it, like, hey, it's going to get done. Or you're working on it, it's gonna move through. And I think just even by meeting you, I'm like, oh, you can kind of tell. Like my wife and I were talking about, like, yeah, that guy's he's gonna go places because he's really passionate about it and wants to do it. And you still have that same passion. You're like super excited about it. So
about everything, dude. I love this industry. I don't have the talent as far as the drawing or writing or anything like that, but I can run my mouth pretty well.
Well, promotions is the big deal. I think you guys kind of got that locked down. The Beard Brothers coming together and doing some cool stuff. I think it's honestly, every time I've done a lot of podcasts, every time I do this, I know it's always going to be a lot of fun. We're always going to talk and shoot the breeze and catch up. But it's you two guys are two of my favorite people. I love talking to you guys. It's always really nice to sit down and catch up. And you can tell me Florida Man stories, all that fun stuff. What is going on with Florida Man where you guys are at? Any cool Florida Man stories?
I mean, it's every day's Florida Man anymore, dude. Like every day, and Karens, Florida Karens, all over the place. It's brutal, dude.
Where did that start, Karen? What is that like?
That there was some lady I forget what it was, but she's steady asking for the manager or something like that. She just being a bit bitchy in a store and asking to speak with the manager. May have started at a Target or something like that, and it usually has like the blonde bob haircut, You know what I mean? That's the standard. Looking like the Kate chick.
John plus. Why
That.
instead of Karen?
Generally looking something like that is the concept. And so I don't know where Karen actually came from.
Maybe that was the name of the originator of.
The lady.
Pretty bad. Like, hey Karen, you're just like, call me Patricia. You know. Yeah.
Ryan says that's because Corey's Corey and he has Greg.
Well, Batman always needs his Robin. But I'm not going to say who's Batman or who's Robin here. I'm just saying. Hey, Brian, what's up? Hey, what's up? So
we were talking about the paper quality, though. Is that something like with Princess Dragon Killer that you're going to, like when you get to it, is that something you take into consideration? Like, okay, I'm going to do blank, so I'm making sure I'm getting that quality of sketch cover that I want to work on, possibly?
I don't know if I'm going to do sketch covers for PDK. I think I want to keep it where it's just centered on the book. And if I do variants, I'll probably just reach out to friends like Stanley, like, hey, people that I'm huge fans of, to do one variant, say, hey, would you want to do a variant for this? I don't want to do a lot of retailer stuff or anything like that. I just want to kind of do, hey, this is the book and here it is. And I want to be retailer conscious. I don't want to have retailers buy 20 copies of a #1 and just get stuck with it. It's kind of the worst thing, and because you look at a lot of these Marvel books, and for me, I'm always like, now as a retailer, now I can wait. I'm like, what? I'm not going to get that cover. I'm going to wait till December when it all goes 60% off, and then I'm going to buy that cover because I know that's going to happen because they do it every year. So it's like, well.
You always miss that one book, though. There's always that one issue that for some reason spikes, and it's like, crap, I should have gotten that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true because there's a lot of cool Venom 25 covers, and the only one I really wanted to get was besides mine, but to sell. But was Marco Chetto's cover, which I finally scored a copy on eBay for $4, and I had to pay $6 for shipping. So I was just like, yes.
Marco's a great artist, fun guy too.
Oh, I love that. I love that guy's work. That guy is so interesting. There's so many ninjas out there, and I always feel like there's so much art out there. So many good dudes, and people just kind of fly under the radar. Simone DeMeo and Ivan Celio, those guys are just, in my mind, wow, these guys are just next level to me. And I'm like, I wish I could do digital like they do digital. It's so awesome, They're like, it's so easy, John Boy. You could do this. I was like, no, I can't. I can't. But here's the brush. I was like, I can't do it. I tried. So.
Let's see. You started Tess having white tigers, just cause.
For Ryan Kincaid. Yeah, I saw that. Someone else did a white tiger thing. So, well, I don't know why I did white tigers for some odd reason. Because I asked him, I was like, well, because of her hair, I just thought, well, she has white hair with a red streak. I was like, well, does she have tigers? Does she
badass with tigers?
She does. So I guess you ride that train. Maybe next time it'll be she has a snake or a pet elephant or maybe some bear cubs or something. I don't know.
Maybe every cover you do going forward, you just add some random thing in there and see if that starts a trend.
Like Spider-Man, he's got a bouquet of flowers.
Yeah.
I don't know.
If Stanley did the little with Spider-Man, the snap with the heart.
I love that. I tried doing that stuff way back when I first started Spider-Man. I do the anime type stuff. And nobody at Marvel got it. The only person who did was C.B. Cebulski. He says, yeah, we don't do that here. Don't do that. I'm like, it's a kid's line. It should be fun. They're like, no. And I was like,
yeah, they don't tell Art Germ that for some reason.
Well, here's the thing though. It's just money it is the huge dividing line. So they know how much Stanley stuff will sell. So they're like, well, it's Stanley. People are going to buy it, so who cares? Stanley could put a girl wearing a fake mustache, twirling her mustache, and people will get crazy and buy it. You know what I mean?
That's an exclusive cover idea.
That's the twirling mustache. See, Mark Brooks' fancy mustache.
Yeah, that is an epic mustache. It is.
I think mid-2000s, the only guy that really stood out Marvel that they really were like, hey, you can have your own style was Pat Lee with that Civil War, House of M Iron Man book he did. where the mechs all looked really anime and more of a.
Yeah, I think that was specifically for the anime line. They did this manga line.
Yeah, they did the manga verse also outside.
Right. Which the only one for me was a big standout was the one that Alvin Lee did, which I like, the Age of Apocalypse, and then the Spider Clan stuff. Well, by Carter Andrews was really, really nice. The rest of the stuff I was kind of like, because for me, I think if you're going to do manga, it would have been a really great opportunity to reach out to artists in Japan and China and say, hey, we've got this thing. Would you want to do it here in the US? And it would have been a great introduction to show people, hey, these are international artists who are internationally known. Their first time working on Marvel stuff. Like, check it out. And I always feel like we're kind of missing the boat on stuff. Like, for all this talk of inclusion and things like that, like, it's a very specific set of styles and things that are used in corporate comics, because those brands are very tightly controlled. Like Spider-Man is this, Batman is this, and they don't like if they go outside of that scope, they have to put it under a black label or something different that divorces itself from the main brand, which is kind of weird because in this whole thing, Superman can be anything, Spider-Man should be able to be anything, and
but a lot of times, though, you'll see where they've, realized a little bit they were being a little too stiff on some of their stuff, and they've actually brought some of those, outlier Batman things into continuity. You would think that maybe, learning from the mistakes of being too strict on things that, creators are creators for a reason. They're good at what they do.
Right.
You're paying them to create, let them create.
That'll never happen. No. The only time that stuff happens is when it's on the off-brand stuff. I think with someone like, you should ask Sean because you've had him on here. Murphy. The reason why he can do what he does is because it's its own pocket thing. It's his own thing. If you let him do that in the regular Batman universe, there'd be all kinds of constrictions and control. Like I think Marvel. During Marvel Knights, when Bill Jemas and Joe Quesada came in, transitioned that to where it's more editorially driven and top-down driven books because it was about the brand is stronger than the creator at that point. And it became very kind of brand-driven books at that point where editors actually would weigh in more on like story and art and things like that. And all of us were like, please stop. Stop. Like the worst thing for me is always like having to do. I'm probably gonna get in trouble for saying this, but should I stop? Yeah, just like getting told to do something just because the editor didn't like it. I'm just like, well, I don't really care. It's like, dude, I'm not here to play up your. I was like, you're hiring me. This is kind of what you get. I don't. You don't like it, I don't care. It's like
it doesn't really make a lot of sense to hire Jonboy Meyers to draw like Pat Gleason.
Yeah, it's tough though because like you want to be amiable to a certain point because like when you get all these notes, you're kind of like that's a good note. That's really dumb. I think it's even harder on writers too because you got some really great writers, but then sometimes with editorial working in their notes because it goes with branding, it kind of waters down the story they want to tell. And I think, every couple of years, every decade, you kind of want to soft reboot brands a little bit to where it's like, okay, now Batman is this thing that's always evolving. Maybe this iteration, he's the Dark Knight Avenger, and this one, he's more of a detective. You know what I mean? You should try to change it up a little bit. But again, though, with those brands, it's like, this is what Batman is, and this is our playbook, and this is kind of what you have to stick with. And if you have things that kind of go outside that brand, it's kind of like, they're not very comfortable with it because it means they can't predict what's going to happen, and it kind of releases control to the creators. And I think the only creators who have a lot of pushback these days is like Capullo and Snyder, probably the only ones that in modern comics actually had that kind of like superpower where they could do that.
Jeff Johns.
Jeff, what can we say about Jeff?
He made Ben Affleck quit Batman.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm
Jeff a couple of times just in passing. He was very nice to me. So I I know like things have transitioned for him now. He's more on the TV end of things. And I think that's a good place for him. I think though, when you hire creative people, whatever avenue they're in, you let those directors and actors and those writers figure out that narrative for that. You don't need other people weighing in. To me, it's the craziest thing. I think if you hire people based off their past successes, the first thing you don't want to do is probably put handcuffs on them, and just like, okay, now make this awesome, and you can do it with one hand tied behind your back, or it's like buying a fancy car and not driving it fast. You like buy a Lamborghini, and you're like, nah, just go 5 miles an hour down the neighborhood. It's like nobody cares about what you have a Lamborghini going 5 miles an hour. It's like, let those things do what it's designed to do. Let it drive fast. Let it do its thing. And I think that is very much leaning on the strengths of creators. I think in any medium, I think this is why it's so hard sometimes to work on more of the corporate end stuff, because they become, at some point you kind of get tired of just like, you feel like you're having to water down your ideas to make it amiable or palatable for everybody. And it's just like, it's, I think there's this weird thing that happens with every artist or creator where it's art versus commerce. And I'm sure Stanley's come to the point now where he's probably feeling that, like when they asked him to do a Supergirl cover, he's like, I've kind of already done everything I want to do with it, right?
Honestly, I think Supergirl is one that he enjoys going back to because it's a very versatile character, because she's the way he was able to humanize her in those the runs that he did. He, like with this last one here, he had options of what he wanted to do for the for this Dark Knight Death Metal. He chose Supergirl because it's one of his favorite characters to draw.
Marquee, then that's cool. Yeah.
Now he went more classic costume, I think, though, with her on that one.
Yeah,
the curly hair and stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean, I do think at some point you kind of get like, I've said everything I need to say about this character, and it's and someone's asked me about Spawn covers. No Spawn covers. I think if you haven't seen, Ken Lashley's the new artist on it, and it looks pretty amazing. I like it going more superhero. I don't like the more horror bent. It just doesn't. It's like.
I think as far as like with Stan, he's become synonymous with Supergirl, like Jay Scott is with Mary Jane. You know what I mean? I think that's kind of where he's moving to.
Yeah, I think at some point though, with brand wise, with your own creator brand, how many of those types of characters and covers can you do before it's kind of like they all kind of start looking the same? You're kind of like, I kind of already have this, or I kind of want to do this. Like for me creatively, I always want to try to do some different things here. Like I think you talk about Spawn covers, we always wanted to do stuff that were the antithesis of what a Spawn cover was. We wanted to do things that were like, we try to do one where it's like, I think the first cover of Spawn Resurrection I posted a couple months back was Spawn, like God as a dog sitting on an empty Spawn costume. Like we want to do stuff like that. And Todd was like, Todd's a boss and Todd's a smart dude. He's like, that's not Spawn. Like Spawn is this. I was like, well, because just do a cool shot of Spawn. I was like, well, like you have like 250 plus covers of Spawn being cool. Like at some point, we're going to start repeating ourselves. You want to start like, can we do something that's a little bit different to let people know that this is something different? When they see it, they're like, oh, well, dog on a Spawn costume. What's this about? I want to, you kind of want to target people who are like, because they get kind of conditioned to see the same thing. It's like, Spawn doing something awesome again. They kind of all blur together, and it's like, well, do something that kind of stands out and makes people take pause a little bit to indicate in their mind, like, hey, this is not your typical Spawn book. This is something different. But I mean, Todd's made millions of dollars off of what he thinks his gut is the right way to go. So, I mean, who am I to argue? I think just for me, like artistically, like trying to do something different and unique is always a little bit more exciting, for me, because, sometimes things get a little old and you want to change things up, I always thought it'd be really cool to like, hey, look, we should do covers based off of characters' secret identities. Wouldn't that be cool to have Bruce Wayne on the cover, like counting money or doing something, or driving his car, like coming out, or doing something like, or Peter Parker taking a picture of Green Goblin, or kind of like stuff like that. It kind of just to change it up, I think, because you kind of say this, and if you do something that's slightly different, it kind of, you're kind of adding something to that narrative a little bit,
There's like a nice Darwin Cook cover where I think it's one of the landscape ones where Bruce is, I think the mask is off, the cowl's off, but he's sitting in the chair and Alfred's putting like a blanket over him.
Oh yeah, it's great. Yeah, I mean,
it kind of humanizes him at that point too.
Yeah, like you're adding a narrative onto the character that's something different. I think Frank Miller did it really well with Dark Knight #1, where it's just silhouette of Batman and a lightning bolt, and it's just like, oh, you catch everything you want to say about Batman, and it's so simplified, so cool, and so iconic. But now you look at that cover is probably like millions of dollars. And I was like, there's nothing to it, just Batman with the lightning bolts. Yeah. But good on him, man. But I don't want to talk to other artists' proclivities. Like usually, whatever Stanley does, I go out and buy it. I'll go eBay it and go get it or whatever. But I think for me, I just think when you're doing certain things a certain way for so long, you just kind of like, you want to try to say, okay, well, let's do something different here. Can we try to do this or do that? Like I think I was doing some Rye covers when I did the Rye Fallen World, and the next cover I wanted to do was like, well, can you do something with Ryan the kid? I'm like, cool. Can I do one where he's hugging the kid? And they're like, no. Like, well, why not? I said, let me do some routes. So I did some routes. They're like, nah, it doesn't feel like Rye to us. I was like, well, that's the whole point. Like, when you got all these like 5 other guys doing these types of covers, can I do this? Or it's just a little different. Heading a little different, showing a different side of the character. Can we do this? Say something about the relationship, or but I get it. Books are supposed to be designed to sell, and it's like
but at the same time, they're variants. They're not supposed. The A cover is supposed to be story contained. The variants are supposed to be just an artistic expression to that degree, in my opinion.
Right.
DC lets them do that. They don't make them stick to the story. They let them just do something that is visually stunning. Right. And it doesn't matter who the artist is, whether you got like what's his name, Johnson,
Dave Johnson.
Yeah, Dave Johnson, who
Dave's a
Flash artist. Yeah. That's where I really became accustomed to his work, is on the Flash, and then you got all the way up to Stanley. Nothing in there, even like with yours and your Flash cover recently, and then. You don't stick to what's going on in the story. You get to throw something, kind of cool, maybe even a little cheesy in there,
right?
And it gets people to look at it and grab it because it's either the colors pop or whatever it may be, just something odd. Maybe I don't know.
Like Mitch Jarrett's has a cool one where it's Flash. You see Flash running in like a rearview mirror of a car, like so you see the Flash
right
pretty much on the car.
That's what I mean by changing it up. Everybody looks at Flash covers and there's like, how many times can you do something interesting about a guy running? You know what I mean? And I think that's that effort to say, I want to do something that's a little different. Like, I can see Flash running in my rearview mirror. How cool is that? And like those. Yeah, it becomes cool, man. It's cool. I like stuff like that. For me, I used to be more, let's do the cool splashy pinup-y covers and like, but that's kind of the thing now. Now I'm more like, hey, can we do more narrative covers? But like the retailer covers I do, they're like, hey, just do cool this, do that. And it's like, yeah, that's cool. I mean, I'm all for it because it's a retailer's book. They want to make sure it sells. I get it.
Now, do you find when you're doing the retailer exclusives, do you often get asked to do an homage to somebody?
Yeah. So I've got a really good homage story about doing homage covers if you want to hear it. So,
of course,
not a popular opinion. So
no, well, I mean, I think you and I have discussed my opinion on them as far as like where we are as far as with our artists and stuff like that.
Yeah, I hate it. I hate so. There's two things. So this got explained to me by a very famous artist from the 70s who's still doing work. I won't name his name, but I met him at Reno, and he talked to me about homage covers. And I gave him a copy of a Supergirl cover, Breaking the Chains, and he's like, oh, this is nice. He goes, I am so glad that you did a homage of it, where you did your own take of it, and you just didn't sit and trace on top. And I was like, well, yeah, you're homaging something, you're, paying tribute to it. Whereas most guys nowadays, like the thing about it is that that you're doing stuff where you're just tracing on top of the older one that the other artist did, and I'm kind of like,
yeah, I won't name it the company, but there's a company right now doing that, just god awful, just ripping. I mean, just blatant ass ripoffs of the some big name creators, and it's frustrating. One of them's of one of our books, and it's like, dude, that's not even a year old.
Well, yeah, the thing about it is it's kind of like learning a skill but not paying the dues, because there's a lot of time that went into that original artist. Like Herb Trimp, Hulk 181 is such an iconic cover, and I'm glad there's so many really good homages out there because people were inspired by that. They did their own version of it.
Mm-hmm.
But then you can tell the guys who actually just set Lightbox on top and put their own characters in the same exact, it's kind of like, I get it. Like some of my old homages were actually exactly that until you talk to other guys and it's like, no, don't. That's not how homages work. They work like this. So don't do that. Do this. Yeah, it kind of bugs me because it's just like, hey man, like I worked like a long time on getting that saliva and spittle just right. You just sat there and just Lightbox your own version of it. Like, dude, come on. Like, dude, you're an amazing artist. Do your own take on it. Like, it's okay. Like, you can say that it was inspired by that, but don't. Yeah, Amazing Spider-Man 300 swipes. Like, but I think if people do their own,
stop. Just stop.
Yeah, I think it's kind of. Here's the thing, though. Like retailers love it and fans love it because they'll spend money on it. It just, for me, like I'm doing a homage right now for an actual homage of like X-Men 173 by Paul Smith with Wolverine running, and I wanted to do something that has that feel and pay tribute to that. But it's like, hey, look, it's not going to be 1-for-1. I don't do 1-for-1 covers. That's not my thing. Like, I don't like doing that. It just feels bad. I'm just like, look, if you really want that, why don't you go to the original artist and commission them to do a complete swipe of their own work? That would actually be really cool. Sadly, like Herb Trimp can't do his own version of his own covers anymore. But there's plenty of other guys, who are doing it. So
Now, I kind of enjoyed say when we get like the anime homages on comics. So like the Beirut Akira, the Eric Chen Akira. So when you talked about Rai, I was thinking like Lone Wolf and Cub with him and his son or something like that. I'm a little bit more into those than an actual let's redo an old comic cover type of thing.
Yeah, I'm more for like original content, but I mean, every once in a while, I think it's kind of cool to work in an homage, but just make sure it's an actual homage. Like, homage is actually paying tribute. So just remember, paying tribute to something. I'm not like,
like there's a couple that Ardrum has done in homage to stuff. Like, he did the Catwoman number 5 was an MC Escher homage,
right? But did that himself. He didn't he looked at it.
Yeah, he went straight like in charcoals.
Yeah,
by hand, no light box, none of that. Then you got the Catwoman 12,
right,
which is an homage to the original. He changed up the pose completely. She was still on that folded page, but her pose was completely different.
Yeah, it's the feel. It's paying tribute to something like, hey, look, my DNA for this piece came from that, and that is a very cool thing to say. Hey, look, like it's a really good thing. No, we're not talking about any specific covers here, Chris. We're not singling out anybody. I think whatever retailer or artist wants to do those things.
If your customer base supports it, fair enough.
If people got to eat, I get it. I'm not going to stop another artist from paying his bills.
Totally these are just Corey, Greg, and Jonboy's takes on things.
Yeah, these are our opinions. That means take it or leave it. It's no big deal. We're just talking. So but like you're always controversial. Like, let's talk about this. I'm like, oh man, like, how dare you, sir? So. But I think original covers are always a lot better, personally, because then you're trying to do something that's new and unique, and you're not so locked into like a certain model. You're like, okay, it has to be exactly. And sometimes retailers are always like, hey, it's got to be, I want it exactly like this. And I'm just like, yeah, man, I don't do that, man. I can't. I'm not interested. Yeah.
Nicole says, and my boss who owns a shop knows that if he has a Jonboy cover to let me know before he posts it to customers.
What
You have a fan that all of your books.
Oh, that's cool. Like, let me know before you post it to customers. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, I've got quite a few. I'm doing like, what am I doing? I did 3 for Boom. The G.I. Joe one, the 2 for the G.I. Joe one coming out. I got 2 for Marvel. I've got 1 for an independent. No, 2 for an independent. And I think maybe a Star Wars one, maybe. So
I can't remember what one it was. It was in previews.
Which one?
Oh man, I can't remember which one it was.
For me or for Stanley?
That was for you.
Oh.
I can't remember which book it was.
Was it a Boom book? Was it Mega Man, or was it We Only Find Them When They're Dead? Like,
what was it? Was it a G.I. Joe or something? Or was it? There's 2 girls on the cover.
2 girls. Oh, Street Fighter. Yes. Street Fighter. I did that as well. Yeah. Street Fighter swimsuit special.
We were looking at it, and Greg's like, "Look, Jonboy."
Like, oh yeah. I feel like, honestly, like I really wanted to do like just send them in their regular outfits. Like, no, they have to be in bikini rounds. Like, it's not the same, man. It's not the same. But I didn't even know like bikini books are still like bikini comics are such a big thing still. But I guess for Street Fighter,
they put out every year, and then I think maybe Antarctic Press puts out something still. But it's not like a huge thing anymore.
Yeah, it's not like the Marvel swimsuit issues anymore.
Or the trading cards.
Yeah. I think they're cool. I just didn't know, like, especially this day and age now, like how popular are those? Because like if you do ones with girls, you have to do ones with guys. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, guy in a 6 pose is like, eh.
I mean, to be fair, the Street Fighter books do.
They do that. They're pretty equal opportunity, which is kind of cool.
And it seems like also a good opportunity for some pinup artists to get recognized. Because a lot of artists in there I don't recognize when I'm looking at the book, and then go to look them up and stuff like that and find out they've trying to get into the industry still. So it's a good chance. So I do appreciate the title for that.
Let me ask you guys this. Do you think there's too many retailer covers on the market now? You think it's just this explosion, or you think it's
not anymore?
No, and I think also like with the way things are too, it's caused people to be a little more reserved on how they go about things. Like, they're not just doing random Marvel books anymore, because at minimum that's a $16,000 investment. You know what I mean? If you're doing a 2-book set. It's brutal, and if you don't make it back, it's an instant loss. And a lot of companies are, John and I have talked. John Jesperson, a lot of shops are one shitty cover away from closing their doors if you go about that wrong.
Right.
And so shops are realizing that with all the shops shutting the doors right now, and they're doing a lot less. Like, Art Germ Collectibles right now, even us, we're just kind of taking a step back, kind of pumping the brakes on some things, letting the industry pick back up and get back to normal.
Right.
We don't want to, we understand that there are a lot of people that are out of work right now. And while there may be a bit of a demand for the Art Germ exclusive, we're kind of giving people a chance to catch up and get their stuff back together so that they can afford to go invest in that stuff.
That's really cool. That's really responsible, you guys. I commend you guys on that. That's really, really smart move. Like, I just think, it's a little tough. I wish they would just put a cap on it. First 5 people, that's it. That's all we're doing. First people who approach and approve, that's it. Or whatever. Because I guess for me, it's always making sure you maintain the integrity of the brand and things like that. Like, I think this whole like punchline thing has just gone bananas, man. I'm just like, holy smokes, man. This whole move to make Harley Quinn a good guy now is totally weird to me. She should be on like Deadpool, like around her old side, but it's just kind of like,
I think in to a degree she is sometimes. I know at least in her like her series on the DC universe, you know, she's very much the anti-hero, you know, trying not to do too much horrible, but still very much
she's a responsible villainess.
Yeah. She's a villain with a good heart.
She's opportunistic. Maybe that's
yeah.
I just think there's like, I just wish there was like, you know what, things would be more collectible if they were like, there were less of them per se. Not every shop could get that then, you know, but I get it. But then it's first come, first serve, you know. That way people have to go to other shops to get other books. You know what I mean? Like maybe a shop can only do X amount of books per year. Say, look, you know, every shop's allowed to do 3 retailer covers. That's it, you know, or whatever. That way it kind of maintains integrity. But I know people want to spend. I'm just always thinking of like, when we come to the 90s, like I have this box of like 90s comics in my room that I'm just like, holy smokes, man. Just like, I would just give them away at trick or treat because it's just like, here you go, like, you know, it's just too much. Like, oh, you're the comic book guy, here you go. It's like, you know, kids get comics instead of candy, which is kind of cool, but they're just like, what, you know, I'm not going to name titles. I'm just like, what's this book? Like, what is this? It's all death. Like, people are dying. Like, you know, because 90s comics are all about, like, you know, killing people and stuff. So,
yeah. And then, you know, 6 issues later, miraculously coming back from the dead because it wasn't them, it was their clone.
Yeah, that's the only thing.
The other universe coming back.
Yeah, there's no such thing as like permanency in comics. I think if characters die, they should stay dead until you do I do believe in rebooting the brands like every decade because you have a new generation coming in where you can refocus your brand on stuff. But just kind of, you know, I'm not a big fan of the multiverse. I'm not a big fan of death metal or anything like that. Like the artists and the teams doing it, I think it's super exciting. It's just like, you know, if I want that now, I'll just read the Black Label stuff. I don't need to like.
Sean Gordon Murphy, that's a good Batman right there.
Oh, it was great Batman, right? And Peter Mayo's stuff too, on like with the Batwing. Aside from that,
yeah. You know, I'm not a Batman guy at all. Like I've never really read Batman. I try, I just can't get behind the character, mostly because a lot of his fans are. And sorry to anybody watching, but a lot of Batman fans are just annoying. Like, yes. And not like regular Batman fans. I mean, just those guys like. Batman can beat anybody with enough prep time. Shut up. Okay. You know, that's the argument, you know, and so that is what bothered me and kind of turned me off of Batman, you know, and then taking the time to read Sean Gordon Murphy's Batman, that is a very good story from start to finish. I was very much invested in the character, especially with the whole Alfred situation. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm not crying, you're crying. You know, I mean, like, that was good, dude. That was a damn good story.
Yeah,
and
great.
So,
and it's kind of cool. Yeah, I liked it. I liked it a lot. Like Thomas Wayne and I were friends. He's like, what? Like we used to be Nazis. Sorry. Like, like the thing about it is, I think though people don't know that, and I don't know if Sean's even said this, but I suspect his Batman is actually Batman from the 90s cartoon, the animated series. That is a continuation of that, in my personal opinion, because everything reads like that. Those narratives read like that. Those characters read like that, sound like that, act like that. And I think, oh, this feels more like that, which is kind of cool, which means Batman Beyond is somewhere on the horizon somewhere, I'm sure. Within, you know.
I mean, that's with, you know, giving that he's around our age. So, I mean, it kind of it makes sense for that to be because that's the Batman he kind of grew up with.
Yeah, yeah, you know? Absolutely. Yeah. Write what you know, write what you're a fan of. You know, like, like Donny Cates too. All his stuff, he told me he writes. It's all fan fiction. Mm-hmm. And he goes, it just happens that people like it. And I said, well, hey, just keep doing it. You know, because you're excited about it. You know, and I think that excitement always weighs through to your readers when you're passionate about something, because people always wonder, like, oh, I always wanted that to happen. Oh, thank God, finally. I'm not a big fan of the Thor stuff, though, man. Like,
not
my cup of tea.
I've never really been a fan of Thor to begin with.
Oh, dude, you got to read the Koipel Straczynski run.
No, I mean, I like a little bit of it. I like some of I like the art.
Right.
You know, to a degree. I just never, and nothing wrong with Jason Aaron.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just I've never been a Thor guy. I can't. There's nothing relatable for me for that character.
Thor is basically Corey with a hammer. That's what he is. He's kind of like.
Maybe that's why I don't like him. I see too much of myself. That guy's an asshole.
Well, he's a god who's been around for a long time. Like it's just, I think what's cool is like the thing is, I'm not a big fan of the Black Winter thing. Not my bag, but
yeah.
I think every creator who comes in should put his own mark on that character because gives you a different facet of that character. And the thing about it is all these stories exist and it's just in your mind, you have to pick for you what is continuity and what isn't. You know, and for me, I'm like, okay, in my run of Batman, this and this matters. This does not matter at all. It never happened in my mind, you know, and I'm perfectly content with being okay with it, you know, and I mean, it's kind of interesting for sure. Like, hopefully we're not saying anything controversial and guys, like we're not singling out any artists who do variants or homages or whatever. I think it's just, hey, what's up? Hey, that's right.
That was me.
We're just kind of we're just talking about in general like things that we see and we're kind of like, hey, why is that happening so much, or why is this like, hey, this is how this is supposed to really intentionally supposed to have worked, and now it doesn't. It's this now, and
to be fair, we're approaching it as fans too, without full knowledge of the editorial vision. Yeah.
Right. Like. So. But I mean, I think, and if I'm critical of corporate comics, I'm sorry. It's just, I think editors, by and large, definitely have a very hard job because it's very top down there too, and they're always overworked. You know, every time I've talked to an editor, they're like 4 books in, and they're like, "What was this?" Like, "Oh yeah, wait, I'm not dealing with that this week. That my Batman week was every other week, or this or whatever." You know, and it's really hard. It's like, wow. These guys are really stretched thin. So I think they're just kind of like us. They're just trying to make the best they can out of the time that they have and do the best work. And it's really interesting given the amount of cooks in kitchens sometimes that cool content still happens. You know, it always makes me wonder, like, are we ever going to see the director's cut of, you know, like a Sean Gordon Murphy Batman story? Or are we going to ever see a director's cut of a Frank Miller Batman story? You know, I don't know. I'd love to see it. I don't know if it'll ever happen.
Or a Grant Morrison story. I don't know that I'd want to see that director's cut.
Well, you know, if you read Grant's early stuff, Karen Berger pretty much just let him kind of run wild. He would ask things like, "Well, can I do this?" Like, yeah, if you want to.
It's Animal Man. Nobody cares.
It's not like Flex.
But then he, you know,
like Flex Mentallo is.
Oh, Flex. Well, if you could find the issues, yeah, those things are great. I think one Batman story you guys should pick up that doesn't really get its due is Batman 100 by Paul Pope, which came out maybe 10 years ago. Is basically Batman versus the Patriot Act. And it's if you read it, it's super relevant today. It's just like he sees all this crap going on. He's beating up cops, he's doing stuff. He's like, he's a real live vigilante. It's actually pretty cool. Very poignant for today's times. And we're kind of, hey, what's up, Michelle? We're in a really weird time though, I think. We've got all like a lot of social unrest right now. We have, you know, the cancel movement and all kinds of craziness. Creators getting in trouble for past behavior and stuff like that. It's you know, it's definitely an interesting time. I mean,
so, how do you feel about Michael Keaton coming back as Batman?
I think it's great. Like, it depends on how they do it. Like, as a modern Batman, no, but as an old Batman Beyond type Batman, I think I'd be all for it. I think it depends on the narrative, right? Like what you think the narrative is. Like that's it. It's the framing, like how right. I think it would be cool like that. I think it would be really cool. I'm all for it. I think I'm not a big fan of the multiverse in movies, but the fact that DC is just embracing their multiverse is probably one of their strengths that separates them from Marvel, because Marvel's kind of copying them now. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think it'll be a fun thing to see. Like just a side note, when Dark Knight first came out, I know DC was pitching that, and they wanted Clint Eastwood to play old Batman, which would have been kind of interesting. But I can't see that happening, man. I can't. Like, but you know, Michael Keaton as Batman, no one could see that either. Like Beetlejuice, you're like, I don't know.
Now, I do want to point out that two guys that just 30 minutes ago were like, "Hey, we're not really Batman fans. We just spent 30 minutes talking about how awesome Batman is."
I do like Batman. I'm just saying, like,
I like Michael Keaton Batman. It was the first movie I ever saw as a kid.
Oh, dude, yeah, like that's like finally we got a comic book movie. But it doesn't seem like sometimes some of the comic movies that come out, I think the Marvel ones get them right.
Yeah.
DC, it's always a little hit or miss because it's always like, well, why did you change that?
You got 9 different visions interfering with the initial vision.
Right.
Instead of like having the Kevin Feige, you have like 6 different people trying to push and pull on a movie and tinker with it and throwing their vision into this scene, their vision into this scene, this act,
Right.
and it just comes out a convoluted mess.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited to see the Snyder cut. I had a buddy who worked on it as one of the main storyboard guys, and he said, "Look, if you ever got to see the Snyder cut like I have, it's complete Justice League vision. You guys would like it." Because I know you would like it. So I like singular vision stuff because Christopher Nolan got to do that on Batman. I don't see why Zack Snyder can't do that on his. But Dave Balance asked a question. I'd like to ask about his covers. Does he feel he does better with more direction, better with a loose general outline for a finished piece? That depends. Like, I think going into something, if editorial or even a commission or anybody has an idea of something that they want, that's the best time to kind of share it. Say, hey, look, like we were thinking, can you do something like this? And at that point, I can dictate whether or not, is this something I want to do, yes or no? Because usually like, hey, we want you to do this thing. We want it to have angel wings on it. And how do you feel about that? And for me, sometimes I'm like, yes, no, like I'd more like to do this. It really depends on the project, Dave. I think getting all the input going into it first before you start is always good. After you start and putting the work in and then getting people's input saying, no, I wanted it more like this is always kind of hard because then the artist's time is already invested in one direction. If you wanted them to, do something different, you should always let people know up front. That's the only bad thing. I think most editors are really good about like, hey, we want this type of cover. Like Todd was always like, hey, look, I want Spawn jumping off a building or I want Spawn sitting on a church rooftop with a cross in back of him or something like that. He was always like, do something like that or do something like this. And I'm like, okay, cool. For me, I'm just like, hey, Todd, you did that on this issue, and Capullo drew them all. I'm like, dude, I can't hold a candle to that guy. That guy's too awesome. He goes, look, man, just do your own version. No, that's the hardest thing is like when you have to follow another artist on a run and it's so prolific, you're just like, you want to do the exact opposite of whatever that artist did because if you try to do the same thing, it's just people are going to be like, Capullo did it better, and you're always going to hear it, and you're just like, I'll just do my own thing, because you always want to do something that's going to separate your run from that. Because if you try to do the same thing, man, you're just like, it's doomed for failure, man, because you're never going to be able to come close. Well, Chet, like Sucker Punch wasn't exactly. If you read some of Hollywood trades, like I think Zach had to make some compromises on his kind of that too. But the strength for Zach is he's a very visual storyteller.
Yeah.
The director. So Zach work on a project, you gotta make sure you have a really tight script, a really good script, because the reason why 300 works is because Frank Miller was on set with Zach and said, this is why this was done. This is why this needs to exist like that. If you're going to have this visual, you need to have some narrative to back it up. So that's where you kind of want to be able to create those bafflers in there to where it's two people collaborating on vision to execute on a final product versus a whole team of people. Because I think that's what's so good about AT&T taking over Time Warner in a sense that I think AT&T knows that creators need to have a singular vision on things, and it kind of feels like that's where it needs to go. And I feel like that's the right call because if you hire these talented people to do these things, because like Matt Reeves' Batman with Robert Pattinson. I saw the costume and I'm just like, but I'm like, you know what? Matt Reeves is a good director. I don't know what time frame this is. I don't know when this is taking place. I think I need to just trust this director's vision and where his actors are going to go with it. And you know, you got to look at it as its own thing at that point. You know, to be able to distance yourself. I'm like, well, this is our vision of Batman, just like any other comic. You know. Well, I mean, 300 is not for everybody, Chet. But yeah, I see what you're saying. But I mean, I don't think it's fair to take a pot shot at a director knowing the way that I do how Hollywood, how to make movies in Hollywood with a singular vision is almost impossible.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's almost impossible. I mean, if you read the Marvel movies, they would go through daily rewrites all the time because actors had input on the scripts and said, well, this feels like we need to go in a different direction. We need to do this better than that. You know, I mean, the fact that there's so many voices, so many cooks in the kitchen that you get really great stuff is kind of a unique thing, I think. So anyway, yeah.
Well, we are at our cap here. We're at the.
You piss off so many people, Corey. It's so much hate mail now.
All right, John. Man, it was great having you on, buddy.
Always, guys. Thank you for having me.
Look forward to seeing you
next
round. And
check out jonboymeyers.com/shop.
Yes.
Tons of great stuff on there. I checked out the website earlier, and he's got it loaded up, ready to go.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. Please stay safe. I hope to see you guys at a show soon next year, hopefully MegaCon 2021. Fingers crossed. So
let's hope, man.
Yeah, I love you guys. Stay safe, man. All right. Thanks for having me.
All right, buddy.
See ya.
All right, guys. We're going to get to reading off the sponsors again. After we're done here, you guys can stay tuned for our next guest. And I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce his name. Gorkim Demir, I believe.
Gorkim Demir.
Yep. Okay. So.
Sponsors. All right. The Shorebox Podcast. The Shorebox is an award-winning comic and pop culture podcast based out of Jacksonville, Florida, created in 2012, hosted by Barter, Cesar, Ed, Ashley, and Drew. The show is on its sixth season of releasing weekly opinionated discussions centered around comic and pop culture topics. Industry professionals, actors, musicians, and content creators regularly join the show to chat about their projects and the latest fandom news. If you've ever asked yourself what's worth checking out, look no further than the Shortbox Podcast.
JJ's Comics and Art, the art rep for Doug Mankey, has been supporting Comic Conline from the very beginning. Head to their Instagram bio to check out the latest they have to offer.
Scott's Collectibles. Scott's reps some of the top creators in the business today and was kind enough to lend a few of their clients to the show. Head over to scottscollectibles.co.uk to see the latest offerings from their creators.
Major Payne Comics just launched their website, majorpayne.com, Payne, and is adding new comics every day. Like them on Facebook and join their insiders group, or feel free to give them a call so that they can help you find the comics and comic art you're looking for.
Alpha Omega Certification. Alpha Omega Certification is the official CGC facilitator for Comic Conline. Check out their website, alphaomegacertification.com, for more amazing lists of signature submission opportunities.
Outright Geekery, the exclusive news provider for Comic Conline. They've had exclusive behind-the-scenes coverage of the event. If you head to www.outrightgeekery.com, you can check out the latest in comic-related news.
The Comic Book Shopping Network is a hub where retailers can come together and host live sales daily. The brainchild is from Jesse James Comics and Jen King from Space Cadet Comics. CBSN is the home for some of the best comic deals and people on Facebook.
Oasis Comics, that's OASAS, www.oasiscomics.com, your official home for Jay Lee and David Barron exclusive covers. Now available are the Power Rangers exclusive color blanks. Pretty awesome.
They are.
Also check out coffincomicsshop.com, where you can pick up so far the only exclusive for Comic Conline, the Art Germ Lady Death.
It's available through Monday?
Yes, I believe the metal and the chrome variants are sold out, but you can still get the trade dress and the virgin variants, which are open order until Monday, as Greg said. All right, guys, that's going to be it. We're going to go and jump off here, and we will take a short break and come back in about 20 to 25 minutes for Gorkim Demir. I was off screen the whole time.
Get in broadcast.